It's difficult to know what to do in this next section, but starting at Genesis chapter 26 and then where to finish is not obvious. Basically, we're going from Abraham has had his son Isaac, who the one he took up the mountain and was going to sacrifice. Isaac then has two twin sons, Jacob and Esau. There's a little bit of repetition in the sense that Isaac's mooching about a bit. God says, no, stay in the land that I've promised your father, so presumably where he already is. And I will give you many, many children and all the rest of it. Ends up lying to a king, saying his hot wife is his sister. King finds out, gets annoyed, but for some reason Isaac gets lots of money until he gets too much money, and the king gets fed up and says, right, off you go. You're a bit too powerful now, so get out. Jacob and Esau gets interesting. Jacob and Esau are twins. Esau is the elder of the two, and God has actually said prior to their birth that the elder will serve the younger. You think, okay, fine, that's quite often, I guess, a hierarchy with siblings. But it's the manner in which it's done, because basically Jacob is a bit of a punk and cheats Esau twice. The first cheating is that Esau is out working hard in the field, comes back. Jacob is making some stew, lentil apparently. Esau is saying, give me stew, I'm super hungry, I've been working all day. Jacob turns around and says, that's fine, you can have that, but sell me your birthright first. I'm thinking that's relating to Esau being the eldest son, which was quite a big deal, the birthright being the one who inherits, everyone else seems to get nothing. So it's a pretty big deal. But Esau does it for some stew, lentil stew no less. I mean, pick your price, I suppose. There's that part, and then later on, as their father Isaac is dying, Esau is Isaac's favourite, Jacob is their mother Rebecca's favourite. Isaac is blind by this point, says he's going to give his blessing to Esau, go out and get him his favourite bunny rabbit or whatever it is that he's going to eat for tea, and then he will give him his blessing when he comes back. Esau and Jacob, let's get these names. Jacob and Esau's mother overhears this, and because Jacob is her favourite, she says to him, quickly go and get this stuff that's already prepared, a bit Blue Peter. Comes back, wraps him up in goat skin, I think it was, because Esau, it's noted, is particularly hairy, so that's covering up himself in goat skin makes Jacob feel like Esau to a blind man, I guess. And sure enough, fools Isaac. Isaac gives Jacob the blessing that had been intended for Esau. Esau is very upset by this. The blessing appears to be entirely verbal. We're not talking any great, here, have this thing that you can't take back. It's obviously a very big deal in those days that is difficult to relate to now. Anyway, off Jacob goes, because he's now got the blessing, and he gets to go off and find a wife and do all the being fruitful that everyone seems to have to do. Perhaps predictably at this point, we've had Abraham go to this place I will do and make you lots of babies. Then Isaac has that, stay in the land of the thing, and then you're going to have all these babies. Jacob gets the same, has a meeting with God. God says, stay here, make lots of babies, do all the rest of it, all well and good. We then have this slightly odd bit where Jacob is off working for his uncle and decides he quite likes his uncle's daughter, i.e. his cousin. See, normal back then, I guess. Does a deal with this uncle saying, I work for you for 7 years, then you give me it's his younger daughter, because that's the one he likes. So Jacob works for 7 years and then gets tricked by his uncle, who then makes him marry the older daughter, who is apparently not a looker. So Jacob says, okay, fine, I'll do another 7 years and then you can give me the younger daughter as well. Does this, works another 7 years, marries the other sister. So now he's married to two of his cousins. Okay. From there, lots of babies start happening. The wives are given babies, the servants are then having babies with Jacob. Oh, the names, there's a lot of names. And it's basically a more baby factory, just pumping these things out all the way. Interestingly, the hot wife, who is Rachel, gives birth to a Joseph, who I believe is going to be Joseph of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat fame a little bit later on. At this point, Jacob cheats his uncle, but it's difficult to feel sorry for his uncle given the whole 7 years married the wrong sister sort of scenario. There's basically some sort of deal where Jacob gets to keep any speckled sheep in the flock, and then the uncle keeps the rest. But then, of course, Jacob just goes and breeds the speckled ones, and basically you end up with lots of speckled ones, not any non-speckled ones. It basically rips him off by some sort of attrition. Uncle is obviously very upset with this. When Jacob takes off with his flock and his family, uncle / father-in-law hunts him down, catches him up. They have a chat. They build a pile of rocks and say that no one will go over this line denoted by this line of rocks in order to hurt the other side. And all seems to be fine. There is more to Jacob, and then Esau comes back in, but we're going to do that in a separate video just because otherwise this is going to get too long. It's interesting, the repetition of very similar story in terms of Abraham, then Isaac, then Jacob. Varying degrees of dishonesty, I guess, or less than ideal behaviour. So we've got Abraham getting rich, having sort of pimped his wife out as a concubine. Then we have Isaac doing basically the same thing. And then we have Jacob, who just cheats his brother repeatedly. It's interesting, we have another instance of the 7 thing. We have God saying he's going to punish anyone who harms Cain 7 times over. We then had Abraham doing something with 7. I've forgotten what it is. I think it's some sort of sacrificial thing with one of the kings. And now we have Jacob has to work 7 years to earn one wife, and then another 7 years to earn another wife. 7 is clearly a theme. It's not clear why. I'm not aware of having seen anything say why 7 is important, but it would seem 7 is a significant number, perhaps God's lucky / favourite number. We also have the second instance of tithing, being giving away 10% of what you own, or what you earn, sorry. Abraham did a deal with King... Melchizedek. I think I'm saying that right. If any Melchizedeks are watching and I've got that wrong, I'm very sorry. And then Jacob says the same of God. Anything that you give me, I will give you back 10%. So basically sort of a tax, I suppose. From my background, I happen to know that that's a thing in the church. A lot of Christians do that, 10% of income to the church. I believe my father did that as well, and sort of a very lowly paid thing, and then giving 10% of it away. And this would seem to be the source of where that has all come from, for better or worse. It's just interesting that that's clearly has a biblical underpin to why people do that. In terms of literal versus non-literal, there doesn't seem to be much going on at all in this. It just sounds like a fairly normal story of history, I suppose, apart from everybody having babies with everybody else and marrying sisters and that sort of thing. But on the basis that was perhaps normal back then, that's fine. So again, it feels a little bit like narration. There's an interesting aspect in the fact that Jacob cheats Esau, and yet seems to be favoured by God, and was predicted by God to be the sibling with the higher up the hierarchy, for want of a better word. It's not very nice. Just if it happened to be that way, sure, but the guy actually cheated his brother twice, and quite blatantly cheated him as well. So, yeah, very odd. I've no problem with treating that one as literal anyway. There's no reason not to, I don't think. It's more example of deeply flawed people moving the story forward, as it were. But that would seem realistic in the sense that all people are deeply flawed in real life. So yeah, there is more to this story. Going to do in the next part, but just to keep this a bit shorter. So we've basically got Jacob and Esau are going to meet up again and see how that goes down after the cheating incident, or the second cheating incident, I should say. But yeah, all good fun.